Hello students. Last week we were having our discussion about air pollution. We talked all about different types of pollutants. You also learned about the atmosphere, layers of the atmosphere. You learned about how some pollutants are just emitted into the atmosphere and the air as they are. Other pollutants have to go through a change. They combine with water in the presence of sunlight to make sort of a new compound. So we learned all about sort of these different types of pollutants and especially some of the impacts they can have on our health and the environment. We're going to stick with this theme of things happening in our atmosphere, and we're going to talk about three different topics this week. The biggest one is climate change, global climate change. So we're going to be talking about greenhouse gases, what constitute greenhouse gases, and how too many of those greenhouse gases can lead to the problems that we're seeing right now. But we're also going to spend a little bit of time talking about ozone depletion and acid deposition, and that's just a fancy name for saying acid rain. So those are some other problems related to the atmosphere that we're going to tie into our climate change discussion this week. So as usual, I have our lecture materials, our labs, our assignments, and this exam study materials folder is again available. Remember that 1 week from this Monday of this week, we have our first lecture exam. So there's all kinds of information in this folder. I think I pointed this out last week, but I'm going to point it out again. Just as a reminder, there's a whole host of information here for you in getting you all ready for that exam. As far as materials go this week, we have a reading on climate change, a lecture, my lecture notes. I also have some other additional resources which I just think help you to sort of visualize the problem better. So one is something called a climate time machine, which is kind of cool. So it actually gives you these great visual images of how things have changed according to the data over time, which is really compelling. And then also, this is a fairly short read, this Climate Change Evidence and Causes. This was updated just last year in 2020. It's, again, sort of nice bullet-pointed information on specifically how humans are causing greater changes to the climate than we have previously seen on this planet. So, again, sort of a really nice additional material to go with the other things that I've provided you with this week. For lab this week, we are going to be looking at actually bringing back a topic that we talked about way back in week 2 when we were talking about ecology. We talked about biogeochemical cycles, if y'all remember those, and one of them we talked about was the carbon cycle. And we were discussing how carbon moves through an ecosystem. So this particular lab that you're going to be working on this week is you're going to be looking at basically it's a simulation. And this simulation, you can put into the simulation different parameters that allow you to modify and alter how much carbon is being introduced into the atmosphere and then where that carbon goes step by step by step. You really need to watch this video, which gives you very specific instructions on how to do the lab this week. So you are, as always, welcome to email me with any questions you have. But the first thing I'm going to ask you, did you watch the video? Because you need to do that first. This really is your first step in understanding how this week's lab works. It's not difficult. There's just several steps in the process, and you need to understand what those steps are. You're going to be collecting a lot of data in this lab this week, and then you're going to be answering questions related to that data. I've also included some additional information here about exactly how to collect data, what numbers you should be writing down. So again, it'll make sense once you look at the lab this week. So it's Climate Change Lab. It's once again based on this carbon simulator that you're going to use for this week. As far as assignments go, oops, kind of backed up a little bit too far. As far as assignments go, it's the same as usual. The discussion leaders, you guys are doing a really great job of posting some really nice articles. I've been really impressed with the topics you've been choosing and the articles that you've selected, and sort of your response and summary to those has been really great so far. So please keep up the good work. Again, as a reminder, and for some of you there seems to be more questions than others, but everyone has to post twice to the board every single week. It doesn't matter if a student is leading the discussion or if I'm leading discussion. And I won't be leading discussion again until like November. So from now for the next several months, it's just students leading discussion. But when the students are leading discussion, you still have to read the article they post. You still have to create your own thread on the discussion board, just like you did before, and give us your response to that article. So we had population a couple weeks ago. So we had some really great articles about, how big our population is going to get and what potentially could happen to resources, right? So that person created the discussion forum. Okay, so let's just take a look at a discussion forum real quick. So that person created a discussion forum, right? So here's our discussion forum, okay? Again, you would click create a thread, just like all these students did, right? Same thing. You create your own thread, you write your response to the discussion question, okay? So, to the article that was posted. So, this article about population, it was really interesting because, think of all the resources that we're going to start running out of. We might not have food for people. We might not have water for people. Whatever your response to the article happens to be. That's post number 1. The second post is you have to reply to another student. So choose any of these threads here, click on the thread, right, and then reply to that student. It could be the same student who actually posted the article that week, if you want to go back to that student and say, oh, that was a really great article you posted. I really appreciate it. I learned so much. Here's some things that I learned. Or it can be somebody totally different in the group. It doesn't matter. But you will not get full credit for discussion if you aren't creating 2 posts. One is your post, which responds to the article, and the other post is your reply to another student. So again, there's been a lot of confusion this time around about sort of how you're participating in discussion. But it's the same format we used in the first 2 weeks. 1 post and 1 reply. The only difference is you're responding to an article that someone posted versus responding to a question that I'm giving you. So just a slightly different focus there. That's all. So those assignments will continue this week. So for discussion leaders, I will once again email you. I'll let you know it's your week for discussion. Again, please make sure please make sure your forms are available by Thursday of that week. So students have a few days to reply and read your article. We also had, I'm in the wrong learning module. My apologies, folks. We're in week 5. And then in this week, the only other thing we have is the chicken questions, right? And that's about it. If for whatever reason you did not get to turn in your brainstorm topics for the Green Tech project, please go ahead and still do that. I'll still give you some credit for it, even if the assignment is past due. I'd rather you earn some points than no points. And again, you need that topic brainstorm so you can start working on the next assignment, which isn't due for quite a few weeks. You're going to narrow it down to a single topic, and you're going to give me kind of an outline of what your project's going to look like. But you got plenty of time for that. But again, if for some reason you didn't get that brainstorm assignment turned in last week, no worries. You can do it this week as well, so please get that in whenever you get a chance. I believe that does it. Again, I'll have more information about the exam. I did send out an email on Sunday of this last week that had a whole bunch of questions that people had asked me on Socrative. So I responded to those questions all about the exam. So please look at that email for more specific information about the exam. And then as other questions come in, I will continue to respond to those. But we've got plenty of time to prepare for that. But if there is anything particular you'd like me to address, I'm more than happy to do so. Okay, so good luck, everybody, this week, and we'll be in touch again soon. Bye, everybody.